Hi, my name is Carrie. I'm with Indivisible Bowie and Beyond Maryland, and this is the What's the Plan recap with Indivisible National's co-founders Ezra and Leah. So we're going to discuss what was said today in the weekly meeting, and I'll give a quick overview of what was said. But as always, I encourage you, once it's uploaded, go and watch the whole thing. I'll make sure and have that linked down in the comments below. So in today's meeting, Ezra and Leah started off by giving us a quick recap of what's happened in the last week. Friday, Minnesota showed us what resistance looked like. Looks like they had a statewide general strike, which was highly successful, and they had tens of thousands show up in the streets in Minneapolis, and it was wonderful to witness. And then we had actions all across the country in solidarity with Minnesota. And then sadly, on Saturday, Alex Preddy was murdered in the street in broad daylight by who is believed to be Custom and Border Patrol. And so, we realize that we are in this important moment where the winds are shifting. And after the killing of Alex Preddy, Democratic senators have said that they are going to hold firm in Congress and not vote for any DHS funding. So they really emphasize that we have a lot of people power right now, and we have to keep leaning into that. In 2 days, we are going to be on the verge of another government shutdown. And right now, it's important that we make sure we're calling our senators and reminding them that we want them to be unified in this moment against DHS. We need them on the offense. We need them leveraging their minority power in this moment. And they do have power right now because this funding bill requires 60 votes. So we need to be calling our senators, if we go into a government shutdown, we need to be calling our senators every day and say, do not cave, do not capitulate, do not give any more money to DHS. They don't need it. And also, really big news, if you haven't seen all the posts yet, No Kings 3 is going to be on March 28th. So hold that date, save that date, start planning now. Because we are going to have the biggest turnout that the U.S. has ever seen for a single day protest. And it was really exciting today. Ezra and Leah had Erica Chenoweth as a guest speaker with them today. And Erica Chenoweth, if you're not familiar with them, they are one of the premier authorities on authoritarian governments across the globe and on nonviolent resistance. So it was really excited to have their expertise in this moment coming out of the general strike in Minnesota last week and moving into planning for No Kings 3 and planning for the primaries, planning for the election in November. So it was really wonderful to hear their thoughts on all of these moments that we're finding ourselves in right now. So Erica talked about how there's a lot of success in Minnesota right now because we are seeing diversity in participation. They are showing diversity in tactics, in the way that they're communicating with each other, the way that they're mobilizing, the way that they are involved within their communities. And that's really important. And that is creating a backfire in the repression that the regime is imposing on the people in Minneapolis. And another really important point that Erica made, they said that there is a lot of discipline being shown in Minneapolis and Minnesota. We have to be disciplined in our resistance. We need to de-escalate. We need to know how to behave in non-violent resistance. And I feel like speaking to that is very important because we see a lot of videos, content creators talk about how nonviolence doesn't work. And historically, this is something that Erica brings up, is that the data shows nonviolent resistance works. It helps with voter turnout. It helps with legislative votes. Because if we're using our voices to call Congress, then that is how our democracy is supposed to function. We don't just leave vote and then leave them to their own devices. No, we have to keep them accountable. We have to continually be saying, wait a second, I don't like what you're doing there. And then we we work within our communities to push forward what we want to see in our governments. And it shows the number of people who are willing to stand up at these single day protests. It's a really nice gauge to visually see how people are opposing what is going on in their government. And then finally, it impacts the general public's opinion. So a lot of people see these, No Kings protests as, yeah, that's nice, but when are we going to actually do work? Well, we are. In those single day protests, we are making it accessible to more people and giving more people an opportunity to express their First Amendment rights, which is one of the reasons why Alex Preddy was killed last Saturday. He was expressing not only his First Amendment right, but his Second Amendment right, and they killed him for it. So we need to be going out of our way to express our own opinions and express our rights unapologetically. I mean, since when in America has it become taboo to express your opinion? Like, it's just kind of mind-boggling to me. However, single-day protests aren't enough. We have to be actively in our community, actively engaged. I love the last couple of weeks, Leah has said that democracy is not a spectator sport. It's not. It is a participatory sport. We all have to be engaged in our government in one capacity or another. And something that keeps getting brought up when we talk about strategizing and moving forward on this collective engagement of pushing back on the regime, everybody has their own areas where they are comfortable, where they have their risk tolerance, what they're willing to do for others, and to engage in the dynamics of pushing back on the regime. Like, some people do better, watching other people's children so that they can go out to the protests. That is just as important as the people who are going to the protest, because you're making that protest more accessible for others. People engaging in calling. We should all be calling our senators and representatives on the local, state, and federal level. They have to know what we're thinking so that they can act appropriately, because that is how our democracy is supposed to work. And once again, primaries came up a lot because that is how we are going to move forward. That's how we're going to create a Democratic Party that fights for us. Specifically what Ezra said. We want to levy these primaries so that we can take a look at who is currently in charge of our district, or on the state level or on the federal level. We want to move that needle towards more progressive candidates who aren't taking money from AIPAC, who aren't taking money from corporate donors. We want our voices to be heard, not of corporations, not of foreign governments. They should be listening to us. And so we are going to use those primaries to assess who needs to go. And in pushing back on the people who are incumbent, like I'm in Glenn Ivy's district, and he kind of teeters on what I grew up calling milquetoast. Like, he's just so bland and so blasé. And I want to see people primarying him. And hopefully, even if those who are primarying against him don't win, maybe that will push Glenn Ivy a little bit further to the left and to stand up. And we've been calling, and he is starting to peek out and be a little bit more vocal on these issues. And that was a topic, like pushing that needle, using our personal individual leverage is our power. And that was a word that kept coming up for me. They said it a few times, but everything just seemed to coalesce around this idea of people power. As we grow our movement, we are also growing our collective power. And that is, in and of itself, going to push us further into a democracy and a community that works for everybody, that we want to see our children growing up in. And so, growing all of these skills, building strategies, trying new tactics, those are all creating this voluming energy that is going to make our country better. So we have to leverage that concept, that idea of people power, and collectively push us forward. One of the things that got brought up is that we're not going to all agree on policy, but what we can all agree on is that authoritarianism needs to go. Like, we are not a country who is going to sit idly by and watch our democracy fall to authoritarianism. And so that's what we really need to hold on to in this moment. Is we can discuss policy later, but right now we need to all link arms and be unified in our idea that we don't tolerate fascists. So on that note, I'm going to let you go. This video has gone on a little bit longer than I wanted, but it was a really, really great conversation today with Erica Chenoweth. So I highly recommend that you go and watch the entire thing and save the date, March 28th, No Kings 3. Check in and see what your Indivisible group is doing and get connected. And I will see you next week.